First of all, I'd like to welcome every one of you to join this Abhidhamma Sangha exploration. And I would also like to thank Edith from the Sirimangaro community for inviting me to do this class. Actually, this course, we have run it once in 2019. And so Edith contacted one day and said if I would like to do this course again. And so thank you very much for the opportunity, because my teacher said, if you want to learn more, share. So this is an opportunity for me to learn more also. So I thank all of you for this great opportunity. And I would also like to invite Edith to say a few words before we start.
Yes, thank you so much, Caraṇapālī. So my journey with Abhidhamma started a few years back. I was instantly hooked on it as soon as I saw it. And over the time, I wanted to represent it and visually express it somehow, because I knew how to design things. I started doing this, and then one of our community member, actually, Fernando, reached out that, oh, you don't have to invent the wheel because this already exists, and pointed to your channel, the Anatomy of the Mind. Is it Anatomy of the Mind?
Yes,
right?
it is, yes.
And so I checked it out, and it was just amazing. It's a very huge library of information, and it's very easy to understand. So from then on, I used that as a platform to learn from. And I thought it's so far is the best from where I could learn. And so it happened that in our study group, or even just our channel in our community, we got so many questions, even Abhidhamma related questions, and we did try to answer them. But so we soon realized that, oh no, we are not so sure about the answer. So we ourselves need to learn for a much more qualified or studied person, perhaps. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I asked your contact information from Fernando, and I said, okay, I'm gonna try if you respond or what happens. So I want to express my gratitude that you were very, very, very kind with us, and you're decided to share your knowledge with us. And I really wish everyone here in the class to benefit from this. I see lots of our community members actually here, and I'm very grateful you all came. This initially we talked about this with Bhante Itadamo, that this probably will benefit those who have already practiced intensively and has the experience. So now you will be able to put these ingredients together and just implement it into your practice. So that's mainly my goal into helping everyone here. And again, thank you, Caraṇapālī, very much.
Thank you very much, Edith. And I would also like to say that I myself am a student, and as the Dhamma is profound, so we all keep learning, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share and explore together. So because always if there are more people and then we share, then you may also ask some questions, and sometimes then we may find answers together. And so it's always a learning experience for everyone. And the good point, the good thing is that we have great teachers. We have teachers from Myanmar, and which are very experienced. Well, my own Abhidhamma teacher, later on, that I will introduce them to you. And so they are always ready for any questions that I cannot answer, then they will be answering those questions. So I think it will be a very beneficial time that we spend together to explore the Dhamma together. Let's get into the content. Before we start, let's pay respect and pay homage to the Buddha, as we always do when we do Dhamma classes. So if you are ready, let's recite 3 times. Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. The homage to the sublime, the victorious, and totally self-enlightened one. Okay, so the Abhidhamma, as we have been saying, that it is a study about oneself. And before we get into the content, it would be good to know a little bit of the history, the historical background of how the teachings actually came to us. For the historical part, I'm just only to go through very briefly, so that for those who are new to this subject can know a little bit about how it came to us. Around 2,600 years ago, the Buddha got enlightened at his age of 35 years old, and then he continuously taught for 45 years until he passed away to Parinibbana at the age of 80 in Kusinara. And after the passing away of the Buddha, 3 months later, 500 arahats, they gathered together at a cave near Rajagaha. So this is actually where it is now in India. It looks like this. And so inside this cave, the 500 arahat led by Venerable Mahakassapa, they examined the teaching of the Buddha. So as you all know, the Venerable Ananda, the very famous "Thus have I heard." So Venerable Ananda, he explained, he recited, he said, "Thus have I heard, the Buddha said this and this and this and this." Then all the other venerables, they will listen, and then they will say, yes, that was the teaching of the Buddha. And then so they examined teaching by teaching very carefully, and until all of them were satisfied with the particular teaching, then they accepted it as the authentic teaching of the Buddha. So as a sign of acceptance, then all the elders, they would then recite the sutta, or maybe a sutta, or it may be a vinaya, a discipline, or anything. Then they recite it together, and so that was accepted. And later on, the teaching was categorized into different categories, depending on whether it was about the rules and regulations for monks and nuns, or whether it was teachings to a sutta, then what the Buddha taught to a particular person something, or whether it was the Abhidhamma that was about ultimate reality. So it was later on categorized. So throughout the history, until now, there was 6 Buddhist council. The last one was held in Yangon in 1954. And so all these councils, the teachings were recited again, and to check whether it was according to how through generation and generation, how it was passed to us. So in the Theravada tradition, the 40 books of the Pali, original Pali text, is the closest teaching that we can find to the original teaching that the Buddha had taught during his time. So I think all of you have heard that one of the classification of the Buddha's teaching is the Tipitaka. Tipitaka is a word that are composed of two parts, which is the Ti and the Pitaka. Ti meaning 3, and Pitaka means basket or things to be learned. So these 3 baskets are, the first one, as we have already mentioned a little bit, the Vinaya Pitaka, which has to do with the rules and regulations and the discipline of the monks and nuns. And then we have the Sutta Pitaka, which are the discourses that the Buddha have give to different people different time. And then we have the Abhidhamma Pitaka, which is the ultimate teachings that doesn't have to do with a particular person, but it's more about the ultimate reality. So the Abhidhamma Pitaka is what we are going to focus more in this course. So Abhidhamma, the word itself, is composed of, again, two parts, Abhi and Dhamma. Now, Abhi means excelling or distinguished, and Dhamma, the teaching. So here, actually, in the Sutta Pitaka and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, we find the same subject. The Buddha taught about the same Dhamma is being taught in the Sutta and in the Abhidhamma. But the only difference is the method of treatment or the method of presentation. So in the Abhidhamma, the Dhamma itself is very detailedly analyzed and very detailedly explained. So therefore, the Abhidhamma itself, this excelling does not mean that it is better than the Sutta Pitaka or it is higher, but only it means that the way of treatment or the method of how it is explained is distinguished. It's in a different way, just like looking at things through a microscope. So for example, the 5 aggregates, we all have heard about the 5 aggregates. So metta, feeling, perception, mental formation, then consciousness. These 5 aggregates are being treated in the Samyutta Nikaya. But in the Samyutta Nikaya, we find it on only 1 page of explanation about the 5 aggregates. But this same 5 aggregates in the second book of the Abhidhamma Pitaka, the Vibhanga, you find 68 pages talking about the 5 aggregates. So that much detailed it is in the Abhidhamma and in the Sutta. So it is different or excelled in this sense, in the way of treatment. Okay, so now another difference between the Sutta Pitaka and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, as my Abhidhamma teacher said, he said Sutta Pitaka is like a prescription and the Abhidhamma teaching is like a medical study. So why do we say so? Because in the Sutta Pitaka, the Buddha, he talked to different people. It was discourses. He was talking to a particular person. So depending on what that person needs, the Buddha told him what he needed for his practice. Let's say a doctor, if the person come to him saying that I have headache, then he will not give him some medicine for stomach, right? So he only mentioned something that he needs. So therefore, in the sutta, sometimes we may find in different suttas that the same topic, it is explained in maybe sometimes different ways. Sometimes maybe 3 points were mentioned, sometimes maybe 5 points were mentioned in another sutta about the same topic. That's because the Buddha was talking to a specific person. So if he needs that much, then the Buddha will give that much. Or if he only needs a little bit, then the Buddha only mentioned a little bit, and that's good enough for that person. So therefore, we say that the sutta is like prescription. It is particularly for that person. But in the Abhidhamma teaching, it doesn't matter who. It's like medical study. If we go to medical school, we have to study all the parts, the anatomy of the whole body. And it doesn't matter whether it is which person. Everybody has this structure. And so we study it without personality, let's say. So the Abhidhamma teaching is this way, is like more like a medical study in a way. Okay, so now the Abhidhamma Pitaka itself contains of 7 different books. The Dhammasangani, Vibhanga, Dhatu Kata, Puralapanyati, Katawotu, Yamaka, and the Patana. So these are the 7 books of the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now, these 7 books, they are all details explanation about mind and matter and nibbana, about ultimate realities. But these books, they are not easy to read. So if we take any of these books right now and we look at it, we might not be able to understand it very easily. So in the 11th century, Venerable Anuruddha Thera, he's originally from South India, then he did a very, very wonderful job. He actually compiled all the fundamentals of the Abhidhamma Pitaka into a small book. So in this small book, all the fundamentals are precisely and comprehensively summarized. So we can say that this is like a guide or a key to the whole Abhidhamma Pitaka. And this small book is called the Abhidhammata Sangaha. So in English, sometimes it is translated as the compendium of the Abhidhamma. So we may see that in this book, we will find all the most important points of the whole Abhidhamma Pitaka. So if we study this book, then we will have all the basic information needed in order to later on read the 7 books of the Abhidhamma Pitaka. That will understand it easier in later on. Since this book is a condensed version of the Abhidhamma Pitaka, it is very common that, especially in Myanmar, all the little monks, they start studying the Abhidhamma through this book. So in this course also, we are going to explore based on this book. But still, this book, some of you might have experience. If you just take this, the compendium of the Abhidhamma and read it, still it might not be so easily understandable because it has a lot of table contents and numbers and like things. I think maybe some of you have experienced that. And say that, oh, I don't know what this is about. So, oh yes, Edith is showing the picture, the compendium of the Abhidhamma. Right. So it's not so easily understandable. So Sayadaw U Sīlānanda, maybe you have heard about him. I will later introduce him also. He said that actually the Abhidhammata Sangaha is written by a monk for monks. Probably Venerable Anuruddha think that they already have the knowledge good enough to understand this summary. So for us, which are not that familiar with all the Dhammas, then when we take this book and just read it, is still not easy to understand. Therefore, in this course that we are trying to explain the Dhamma with some graphical explanation, which is an attempt to facilitate the understanding of the important points of the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now, although we said that this is a book written by a monk for monks, but don't worry, it is not that difficult. Actually, with some explanation, we can very easily understand because this is all about us. We experience this every day. So it is nothing new. It is everything that is happening and going on inside of us. And little monks in all the monasteries in Burma, they all study this book. So it's not really that difficult. So we can all go through together and explore. Okay, now, Venerable Anuruddha Thera, in the 11th century, he actually wrote this Abhidhammata Sangaha in Pali. And the first English translation appeared in 1910 by Xuezhang Ong, and it is called the Compendium of Philosophy, I think published by the Pali Text Society by that time. Then later on, another version of the Pali translation, Pali to English translation, appeared in 1942 by Venerable Kashyap. And later on, there is another translation by Venerable Narada Thera in 1956, which Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi revised that edition of Venerable Unarada into the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma, which the charts inside is actually prepared by Sayadaw U Sīlānanda. So for us here in this course, the content we're going to base on this book. And in this book, it has 9 chapters in total. And so it gradually, like progressively, it explained about mind and matter, also mental processes and about karma, about everything that we need to know as a basic in order to know more about the Abhidhamma. Yes, I see that Edith has raised her hand. Do you want to say something? Yes, please.
Someone was asking the question if any kind of book will be used, and I actually said that no. So correction, this is the book that we are using, right?
No, actually, well, yes and
Okay.
no. Yes. Well, what I would like to say is that the course is based on, this book is based on the Abhidhamma Sangaha, but you don't have to read it. So even if you don't have it, it's okay, because we are going to explain it part by part. We are going to go through the information with graphical explanation. Actually, when we studied the Abhidhamma with our teacher, he actually gave us the book, like after 5 months or 6 months, we have been studying the Abhidhamma with him. As we said, that the book is not so easily understandable. So maybe he thought that he doesn't want to scare us away to look at the book with all the charts and all the information. So he preferred that we don't even look at the book in the beginning until we get more familiar with everything. So I would say that it's not absolutely necessary, but if you want, you can take a look at it.
Yeah, this is the book that we studied in 2016, I think, with our community and with Bante. So we were reading this, and he was explaining things. But it's still very, very super hard, and just the charts and tables are just dry, basically.
Yes.
That's how I wanted to create images out of this. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Yes, okay. So the content is based on this book, is based on the Abhidhamma Sangaha. But in this course, I have also included other materials, such as some talks by Venerable Sayadaw U Sīlānanda. Sayadaw U Sīlānanda, he is a very respectable Burmese Sayadaw. In the late 30s, he spent a lot of time in England. He's a very good scholar. He's very knowledgeable in the Dhamma. And he actually translated the second book of the Abhidhamma Pitaka, the Vibhanga, from Pali into English. So he has a wonderful series of talks about citta, about consciousness. And so some of the information, the materials, and also came from his talks. When I prepared this course, I used some of those information as well. And Sayadaw U Sīlānanda, you might have heard about him, is again another great scholar and teacher from Burma. He was actually one of the distinguished editor of the Tipitaka and commentaries at the 6th Buddhist Council in Yangon. So in the last Buddhist Council where they examined the Buddha's teaching again. So he was one of the editors. And in the 70s, he traveled with Mahasi Sayadaw to the United States to teach meditation and the Dhamma. And later on, Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw asked him to stay on and continue teaching. So Sayadaw U Sīlānanda have given a lot of the Abhidhamma courses in the United States, actually. And then there are these 3 books called the Handbook of the Abhidhamma Study, which is actually a transcription of one of the courses that Sayadaw gave in the United States. So this Handbook of Abhidhamma Study is really, really, really a gem. So I do recommend that. And a lot of explanations that you will see in this course, explanations from Sayadaw directly. So I took a lot of his information from his books. Also, Sayadaw U Nandamala Biwamsa, which is a very knowledgeable and compassionate and respected teacher in Myanmar. Throughout the years, I've also taken courses with him in Myanmar, so our direct teacher, which is also the teacher of my teacher, Sayadaw U Kamsachara. Then you see the photo here on the right side. So Sayadaw U Kamsachara, he is also from Burma. He has been a monk since he was a little child. So he has been studying the Dhamma since very young. He has been very patiently explaining the Dhamma to us and answering all the questions. I have the great fortune to study directly under Sayadaw since 2011. Sometimes we'll visit the monastery and then we will stay 6 hours straight and Sayadaw will explain the Abhidhamma. And then another day we'll go again, and then we will study. So in this way, directly Sayadaw has taught us. If we have any questions, Sayadaw offered that if any points that we are not clear, that he is willing to answer our questions and to help us further understand the topic. So which is, we are very fortunate in this sense. In this course, then we will be using all the materials from all these teachers. Plus, sometimes from time to time, I also quote our meditation teacher, Sayadaw U because as Edith was saying, that for those who have practiced meditation, then this information is very important or very helpful also in our practice. This is not just only for knowledge. It's directly related to our daily life as well as our meditation practice. While I have been learning the Abhidhamma on many, so many occasions that I thought, that's why Sayadaw said like that, my meditation teacher. Then at that time, I didn't understand why he said like that or why like that. Then when I was studying the Abhidhamma, I said, that's why he say that, because of this, because of that. That's how it works. So many aha moments of the practice in the study of the Abhidhamma. So I think this might also happen to you. I hope so. What I can say is that this is like the why and how of the practice. In this course, it will be with graphical explanations, and this graphic design and animation is also a collaboration with Bhante Rahula. He contributed a lot for this graphics and also the arrangement of the course as well. Okay, so in this course, we are going to look at the Abhidhamma Sanghaha in the Theravada tradition, and what I'm going to share with you will be what I have learned from our teachers. And if you have any questions, you are very welcome to ask. Okay, so up to here, we have seen a little bit of where it came from, a little bit of historical background. So today, because it is the first session and as an introduction, we will not go into a lot of content, but I would like to tell you a little bit of what we are going to look at. Before we get into the introduction of what we are going to look at, it is important that we first understand two kinds of truths or reality. Because without this basic information, then we will not be able to go ahead. Whenever we talk about the truth or the reality, then some people may say that there is only one truth, there is only one reality. And different people interpret the reality in a different way. But in the teaching of the Buddha, there is not only one truth, there are many truths. And how is that so? Now here, reality and truth, these two words, we're using it here interchangeably. So sometimes we can say reality, sometimes we can say truth. It means the same thing here. And this truth or reality are of two kinds. So when we call something truth or reality, is actually something, whether it is true in the conventional sense or whether it is true in the ultimate sense, is called a truth or reality in Buddhism. So we have these two kinds of reality. Well, one of that is in reality. For example, if we say that, oh, there's a tree here, and it's true, it's not a lie, there's a tree here. But then this is only true according to the convention. So there are some things that are true only according to the usage of mode of expression accepted by a certain group of people or accepted by people at large. So this is one kind of reality that we call conventional reality. And then we also have another kind of reality, which is reality in the ultimate sense. For example, when we say a tree, then we know at the end that there's no tree. Then it's just actually combination of different matter getting together in that specific form, and then we call that a tree. Yes. So we have two kinds of reality: the conventional one and the ultimate one. Now, in the Buddha's teaching, since something which is true, which is real, is called reality or truth, so this reality of truth doesn't need to be only good. It doesn't have to be high or lofty. For example, the second noble truth is craving. So craving is an unwholesome mental state which gives undesirable result, but in the Buddha's teaching is still called a truth because it really exists. Yes. So like generosity, compassion, and loving kindness, this also exists, is also a truth, also a reality. But at the same time, dosa, aversion, anger, it exists also. We know it because we experience it. So that is also a truth or a reality in the Buddha's teaching. Now, in the conventional reality, then we say it in the conventional sense, we say this is a tree. And in the ultimate reality, we know that it's actually metta. In Pali is called rupa. So it's actually a mass of this rupa put together in this specific way. Then we call that a tree. Yes. And the smallest metta in the Buddha's teaching, that in the Abhidhamma, we find it is called kalapa. Later, we will get into details about all the of all this information. We will be using some Pali words here because sometimes there is no English equivalent to exactly to explain the Pali word. So it is very helpful that we use the Pali word to avoid some misunderstanding. Later on, we will see why. But you don't have to memorize the Pali words, so don't worry about it. And then we will keep repeating them, so you will hear them again and again and again. So later on, we will get familiar and we will know what we are talking about. Okay, so the conventional truth in Pali is called sammuti sacca. Now, sammuti means common concept or common agreement, and sacca means truth. So common concept or common agreement, meaning that a group of people, they agree to call this thing a car. Yes, so this is in conventional sense, this is true. If we say to any English-speaking person a car, then they know what it is, that they know what we are talking about. But if we talk to some Spanish-speaking person, they might not call it a car, they might call it a coche. And again, then we also, if we talk to a Japanese person, they don't call it a car nor a coche, they call it a kuruma. Yes, so this conventional name, it can change according to different group of people. So this cannot be an ultimate reality, yes. And also, at the same time, we all know that actually a car does not really exist. What we call a car, if we separate the car into different pieces, into different parts, then there is no car. There are only all these different parts putting together, the combination of all these pieces, that we call it a car. Yes. Now, if we separate it, we don't find any car here actually. Well, there are seats, there are wheels, there are like all different parts. But then all these different parts again are different parts. Let's say the seat, then it might be a cushion or some leather or a frame or something. So it can go again to smaller and smaller. And at the end, there is no seat and there is no car, there's no wheel, and it's just material properties there, yeah? So in the same way, for a house, what is a house? Like a window is not a house, the door is not a house, the stair is not a house, but the combination of all these things, we call it a house. Now, but we know that in ultimate reality, it is a combination of different kind of matter that putting together that we call it what it is. So in the same way, for a human or a living being, a cat or anything, it is also made up of different parts. We are made up of actually of mind and matter. In conventional sense, we call this a man, a woman, or a cat, or anything like that. But in ultimate reality, we are made up of mind and matter. We are a combination of mind and matter. So now we come to the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality. And ultimate truth in Pali, it's called Paramata Sacca. Paramata means ultimate, and Sacca is truth. Now, how do we know if something is an ultimate truth or not? So there are some kind of characteristics that so we can know that whether this thing is an ultimate truth or not. So one of them is that if it is an ultimate truth, its intrinsic nature and characteristics never change. Now, for example, fire. We know that the characteristic of fire is it's hot. Fire is hot. So there is no fire that is ever wet or cold. Yes, so its nature is hot. So its intrinsic nature and characteristic never change. But here we don't mean that the fire doesn't change. The fire arises and it passes away, arises and passes away. We all know that the matter itself arises, passes away, but its nature or its characteristic, all fire are hot. So that nature does not change. So that is one characteristic of ultimate truth. And another characteristic is that it is that which is irreducible. Now, in the example of the car, we took the car apart and would become a bunch of engine or a seat or wheel or these things. And then when we take the engine, still we can reduce it into different parts. And then the other parts, we can reduce it into different parts. So when it is an ultimate reality, so it is not reducible anymore. So that's one of the characteristics. For example, a person that we call a person, what is actually a person is 5 aggregates, yeah? So 5 aggregates are, what is 5 aggregates? 5 aggregates are mind and matter, actually. So we cannot reduce it any further. So this is also a characteristic of mind and, for ultimate reality. Now, another characteristic of ultimate reality is that it can be experienced by oneself. For example, dosa, aversion. Dosa is the Pali word for aversion as mental ingredient. That we will look into it later. So when we say that something is the ultimate truth, we can experience by oneself. So let's say, for example, anger, it exists. We know because we experience it by ourselves. We know that it exists. And the same way, loving kindness, generosity, that also exists. We can experience it by ourselves. Now, another characteristic of the ultimate truth is that it has 3 phases. It arises, it exists, and then it passes away, except for Nibbana. Now we'll come to that later. Okay, so anything that fulfill these criteria, then we can call it an ultimate reality. So let's go into, in summary, to examine whether something is an ultimate reality or not, then we can check whether its intrinsic nature and characteristic never change, whether it is irreducible, whether it can be experienced by oneself, and whether it has the 3 phases of arises, existing, and passing away. Okay, now Nibbana is also an ultimate reality. Its characteristic and its nature doesn't change, is irreducible. It can be experienced by oneself, but it does not arise, exist, and pass away. So only except Nibbana, all other ultimate reality has this characteristic. Later in the further content, then we will get into all these details of Nibbana as well. So we will see that later on. Okay, so now let's take an example. Let's examine something. Let's take craving, lobha, in Pali, lobha. So craving, for example, its characteristic is the grasping on an object, the holding on to an object. So all lobha, all craving has these characteristics. It's always we're sticking into the object, wanting the object. No, it never changes into, let's say, generosity. Craving doesn't want to give. So its nature does not change. And then craving itself is a mental ingredient that we cannot further divide it into something else. And then craving can be experienced by oneself. I think we all have some time that we wanted something. So that experience we can know, and then it arises, exists, and passes away. Obviously, we're not craving all the time. It arises, it stays there for some time, and then it's gone. I see that there is a hand raised. Yes, please. Claudia.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. But I just want to ask, you talk about kalapa before, like this small particle. I'm curious about why a human being cannot experience a tree through the kalapa, why we see the whole tree together and we do not see actually what happened inside the tree, like this arising and passing away.
Okay, yes. Now, this question actually as if you knew what was coming. So in the next few slides, then we will talk a little bit about that, which is related to what you are asking. And also, actually, we can with practice. I will not be able to give you a very satisfactory answer now until we get into further content. But I think in the next few slides, you might get a little idea, of why and what happened. Yeah. Okay. So sorry if you see that I'm looking at this eyes, because I'm looking at you actually, because my screen that with all the person is on my other side, because here I'm like sharing the screen. So, okay. So we can continue a little bit, and then later on we'll come back to you and see if you get your answer. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So now let's continue a little bit. Okay, so up till now, we have seen that we have conventional reality, conventional truth, Sammuti Sacca, and ultimate truth, Paramatta Sacca. Now, Sammuti Sacca, conventional truth, is also called Paññatti, concept. In the chapter 8 of the Abhidhamma Sangha, there's a section about concept. So here, I'm just going to briefly introduce a little bit of it, which will also answer Claudia's question. Okay, now in concepts, we are going to look at two kinds at the moment. One is called Nama Paññatti. Nama Paññatti is called name concept. So Nama, name, Paññatti, concept, which is in this case, let's say ka. This word, this name, ka, is something, Nama Paññatti is something that makes some other thing known. So in other words, the name of something. Okay, are we okay until here? Yes? Okay, Then we have another kind of concept, which is called the Atta Paññatti. The Atta Paññatti is the thing itself, the thing concept. So that is the object that is represented by this name. So in this case, the car itself, the thing itself. So we have the thing which in itself is also a concept, because a car really does not exist. As we said already, if we take it apart, there's no car. So a car itself is a concept. So that's the object, the thing concept, Atta Paññatti, and we give it a name referring to this concept, car. Yeah. So I think all of us have this experience that sometimes we see the thing in our mind and we don't remember what it is called. And then I said, I know this person, but I don't remember what is his name. So I think all of us sometimes have this experience. So why is that so? Because actually there are two things. Yeah, the thing itself is one concept. The name itself is another concept. So sometimes we see the Atta Paññatti in our mind, but we don't remember the Nama Paññatti. But sometimes they come together. I see this person. Oh, I know this is Robert or whoever. Yes. So Nama Paññatti is the name that we give to something, and Atta Paññatti is the object itself, a concept, no? Object concept. Okay. Now the Nama Paññatti is also interesting here, is something that makes some other thing known. So it can also make known an ultimate reality. For example, if we say dosa, dosa is the Pali word for aversion, for anger, yeah? So this mental ingredient of aversion, this dosa cetasika, is an ultimate reality. It actually exists. We can experience it, just like craving we talked about a little while ago. So, but this name, the word dosa is actually Nama Paññatti, is actually the name that we use to refer to this ultimate reality. Okay, so here we see that Nama Paññatti, name concept, it can refer to a thing concept, which is another concept, or it can refer to ultimate reality as well. Okay, until here, everybody okay? Yes? Okay, so now next we are coming to see what happens in the mind. Now, if we see this, or say, what is that? Then we might say, what do you see? We see, I see a circle of fire. Yes, a circle of fire. Actually, the circle of fire is a paññatti, is a concept. It does not really exist. What really exists there is the light of the fire in a different place, at a different time, one at a time. The fire is here now, and then it's here, and then it's here, and it's here. But then it's so fast and so fast that our mind, the mind is so adept at constructing these thoughts and these images into a whole that we think we see a circle. The eyes actually only see lights appear and passing away, appear and pass away, appear and pass away in different positions, but so very quickly that the mind constructs a circle or even a flower of fire. So these are actually, the eye only see the light of the fire at this point, at this point, at this point, but then the mind constructs it into a circle, which does not really exist. Now I'll give you another example. Let's look at this. Well, we see, is there a line of ants, right? We see a line of ants here. But if we take away one ant, one individual ant, then the line is broken. There's no line, or maybe there's two lines now. Yes. So what exists are the individual ants, but the line itself does not really exist. The mind constructed. Okay, the mind is so used to this. For example, also, sometimes we see clouds. We are so human that this mind is so amazing that we see an elephant in the sky with the clouds, and we see all different shapes. Actually, obviously, there is no elephant there. And it's just, well, but when we see that shape, the mind already said, oh, this is an elephant, or this is something. So the mind constructs this concept so very, very, very quickly. The mind works so fast that we usually don't realize this. For example, when we read, we are so used to reading that when we see the word, we automatically know what it is. It's alphabets, yeah, very quickly we know. And it seems that we see and then we know already what it is there. But actually, the mind did a lot of work there. First, it has to see each letter, and then it has to put it together, and then it has to make sense of it, and then it has to know the sound of it, and then it reads it out. But then we are so fast and so quick, and we're so familiar with these mental processes that we don't realize. But if we see a child reading, for example, then the child is just learning to read, then we see this in a more obvious way. Yeah? Then they have to like kind of like trying to figure out which sound, which word until she can read the word. Yeah. Okay. So even for adults with unfamiliar things, then these processes become more apparent. But because we are so used to all these things every day, we don't really see it. Now, Sayadaw U Sīlānanda, he says, and now it comes to Claudia's question, although ultimate reality exists as the concrete essence of things, they are so subtle and profound that one who lacks training cannot perceive them. Because one's mind is obscured by concepts which shape reality into conventionally defined appearances. Only by means of wise and thorough attention and proper mental training, the ultimate realities can be seen beyond the concepts. So, yes, Claudia, does that answer your question?
Yes, this one gives me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. Yes, with training.
I just wanted to a little bit introduce this into experience that even when you're looking at the tree, you don't see the whole tree. So you just see just parts of it, very little, wherever your focus is, and maybe your focus is shifting and your brain is putting it together. But even as you are looking at it, it's never the one big thing. That's it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Thank you very much for this point. It's very interesting. Even if we think we have a distance, we see the whole tree, we cannot see the other side of the tree. Yes, we see only the front part, and we cannot see the front and the side and the back and everything at the same time also. Yeah, so it's always partial. And what I was wanting to say a little bit earlier is that sometimes ultimate reality cannot be seen with the eye, but it can be seen by wisdom. So the mind can see ultimate reality. It can understand ultimate reality, but seeing in the sense not seeing with the physical eye, no? So the mind with training, with practice, we can see how things work. The mind can understand how ultimate reality arises and passes away. We can see it with wisdom, but not with the physical eye as well. Yes. Okay, so this is something very interesting and very good for us to keep contemplating on about the ultimate reality and about concept, because many times we are looking at things, only concept. Here, I want to share also what Sayadaw Tejaniya said, which is our meditation teacher. It's very, very interesting. He said, the defilements focused on concept, wisdom focused on ultimate reality. When we say we want something, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, if we look at it, most of the time it's concept. I want a new car, I want a new house, I want a new something. All those things that we want are ultimate, no, not ultimate reality, they are actually concepts. So craving craves for concepts, actually. Like in ultimate reality, it's matter. Then wisdom can see that all those things are matter, or even a person. It's mind and matter, combination of mind and matter. And if we see this, that it is just a process of mind and matter going on. So there is nothing much to crave about. It's just a natural process going on. Yeah. So our teacher, my meditation teacher, Sayadaw Tejaniya says, wisdom focus on ultimate reality, defilements focus on concept. Yes, Edda.
Yes, I was just thinking there's the case of someone wanting wholesome things, like I'm going to meditate a lot because I wish to attain Nibbana. Is Nibbana in that sense like actually a concept because it's right, it's just conceptually what they want there?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question. Wanting in chapter 2, I'm going to do some advertisement here. In chapter 2, we are going to look at mental factors. Then we will see there are two kinds of different, there are two mental factors. One is lobha, which is craving, and another one is called chanda, which is how do you say that in English? Like English words is a little bit problem, sorry. So the desire to do something, but not that unwholesome desire. So the wanting to do something. So in this case, if a person wants to meditate, it can be the motivation can be, depends on his mind state, no? It can be because wisdom knows that meditation is good for him, so he wants to meditate, and this mind state is associated with wisdom. So in that case, is not craving, is not the unwholesome cetasika, unwholesome mental state, because they never come together. Wisdom and lobha never comes together in the same consciousness. Yes. So in that case, this desire or this wanting to meditate could be chanda, because he knows that it is good and it is driven by wisdom. So in this case, it is not lobha. And if the person who attain, he then with this effort, with the wanting, we must have chanda. We must want to, in order to attain something. Yes. So when we want to, then we practice, we put in effort, then the person finally attained Nibbana. And then that is true. Nibbana really exists, is an ultimate reality. It's not a concept. But then in other case, for example, this person, he has a strong desire. I want to meditate because I want to show my neighbor that I'm so good. Yeah. So in that case, then his wanting might not be driven by wisdom. So chanda is still there. He's still wanting, but it is associated with lobha. It's associated with craving this time. So this wanting something is associated with craving. Then he wants. because then he wants to show his neighbor. Then in that case, that what he wants, this nibbana, is actually not really what nibbana it really is something he imagined that it is. Maybe this is something good, maybe this is something that I want to have. Yeah. So in that case, that nibbana for him might be a concept. Does that make it a little bit clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so I said a little bit because my Abhidhamma teacher, he always said like that. Whenever he answered, I asked some questions and he answered, and then he said, so now do you understand? A little bit? And I said, yes, Sayadaw. It's because the Dhamma is so profound. We only understand a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. There is always more. So I myself also don't understand everything. And Sayadaw himself also, he also said, I also don't understand everything until we attain really the highest wisdom. Then we may say we understand. But then now, slowly, a little bit by little bit, then we accumulate a little bit of knowledge and hopefully it turns into wisdom. Yeah. Okay. So any other questions or any other person that want to share something until now? Are we all okay? Yes, Edith, please.
So it just came to me, this question, what is the wise way or the wise ingredient when someone wants to share the Dharma or teach meditation, for example? And what is the wrong way, the lobha, the craving part? Or yeah, the wrong way. Thank you.
Yes, I think there can be so many different variations of it. It depends like on the person, really. Sorry, I am looking at this side, but I'm looking at you actually. Okay, I'm sorry because of the screen. Okay, so there are so many varieties depending. For example, in the suttas, there are many suttas that the Buddha mentioned that a monk, that his motivation, no? For example, when he shares a Dhamma or even being a monk, then he should not be looking after for fame, for material things, or for donations, or for like getting famous. Well, that's fame, and for all these things in the sutta is also mentioned. So I think we can also take a look at those information given there. But for example, to share the Dhamma, I think personally, I would say that it's a great opportunity because you all know, Sabadanam Dhammadanam Jinati. For all gifts, the Dhamma is the best gift. So I thank you all for giving me this opportunity, for giving the most precious gift, which itself is a karma. I know I'm doing kusala. I'm happy about doing this kusala, and this is going to give result. Not that I want the good result, but then the result will come because it's just a process of nature, even I want it or not. But then if you know that that is good, that is something good to do, and then you do it happily, then a good result will happen when it happens. Yes. So I think with this attitude, this could be a good attitude, I think, to share the Dhamma. Some people, let's say like the example given in the sutta, some people may want to become famous or may want to gain something, or in those cases that might be mixed with craving, with lobha. So in that case, then actually in chapter 6, when we talk about karma, then also these ones will become very clear. In the Abhidhamma, it explains everything. It's amazing. So in those cases, then even one is doing good, the quality of that goodness, the quality of that karma become lower. And the result that one gets, it's of less quality. Is that good enough, Adit? Or do you have some other comments? Yeah, okay. Up to here, then we have looked at ultimate reality and conventional reality, which is a basis for what we are going to explore in the Abhidhamma itself. Now, another difference between sutta and Abhidhamma, which we have talked about a little while ago, in the sutta, the Buddha, he actually taught with conventional terms. He said, for example, he said, be an island to yourself. Yes. So he talked about yourself. But then we all know that the Buddha did not accept that there is a self. So this yourself, what does he mean by this yourself? Yes, that's because in the sutta, the Buddha, he used conventional terms for people to understand. So that's a difference between the sutta's teaching and the Abhidhamma teaching. In the Abhidhamma, the Buddha, he used terms that express ultimate reality. So he talks more about what really exists ultimately. And in the Abhidhamma, there are 4 kinds of ultimate truth, which is mind and citta, cettasika, mind, mental ingredients, metta, rupa, and nibbana. So 4 of them. Later on, we will come to that. So here in the Abhidhamma, since we are talking about the Abhidhamma, we will more focus on the ultimate truth, paramatta satya. Now, from here on, I'm not going to go into much content anymore. I'm just going to go through a little bit and make it a little introduction of what we are going to see in the Abhidhamma Sanghaha in these coming sessions. In the first chapter, we have already mentioned that the Abhidhamma study is about ourselves. Yeah, so we are made of mind and matter. So what we call a mind actually is then further divided into citta and cettasika. Now, citta is usually translated as consciousness. Now, again, we come to the translation problem. That's why I really encourage everyone to use Pali words, because consciousness, this word, I think every one of us might have a different understanding of what we mean by consciousness. Yes. So if we use the word consciousness, then it might not just justify the Pali word, what it really wants to say, because we already have an idea of what consciousness is. So we might think that the citta means the consciousness that we understood what is meant by consciousness. So, but that understanding might not reflect what the Buddha wants to say, what he wants to explain, what citta is meant here. So therefore, of course, the translation we will be using both, but then we'll prefer to use the Pali words so that we know what we are talking about. Then we don't have any doubt about some terms. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, later on, when we listen to these words again and again, we will be familiar with them and we know directly, immediately what we are talking about. So a person, we're saying that mind, what we call mind, is divided into, again, citta and cettasika. So citta is translated as consciousness, and cettasika is translated as mental ingredient or mental states. Now, with this example, sometimes I use a plate to refer to the consciousness, and the mental ingredients, like different cooking ingredients. But then, although here I separate them into a plate and the ingredients, but they always arise together. Citta and cettasika, they never separate. They always arise together. Now, for example, if we go to a restaurant and we take the menu and we order a dish, then we never go to the restaurant and say, oh, could you please give me a plate of nothing, please? Or we never say that, oh, could you please give me a salad without a plate, please? We never say that, yeah? So the salad always comes with the plate and always with its container. So in the same way, citta and cettasika, they always arise together. There is no citta that arises without cettasika, or there is no cettasika that arises without citta. They always come together. Okay, so this point is important. And how closely are they together? One of my very good Dhamma friend, and then he used this example. He said that citta is like water, and then the cettasika is like things, different kinds of color inks. So when you put those inks into it, they mix so well together that it is not possible to separate them anymore. So that is how the relation between Chitta and Cetasika, they arise together and they are always together. It's although they have different characteristics, the red ink and the blue ink and the water itself, but they are so mixed together. Then they arise and they pass away together. They arise, exist together, and pass away together. Okay. Now, in the first chapter of the Abhidhamma Sangha, we are going to look at all kinds of possible consciousness. So it's like a menu. We see that what dish is available in this human feast, and also actually existence, because not only about human, also about other types of beings, all these are also explained. So all kinds of consciousness that are possible, and also the mental ingredients, the Cetasika, which there are 52 kinds, and we will go into them one by one. And some of these mental ingredients is really like cooking. Some of these mental ingredients, they are neutral, and some of them are spicy. They can be unwholesome, and some of them can be very sweet, like the wholesome ones. So depending on the combination of the different ingredients, then we make different dishes. So those are the different consciousness, different dishes that we see in the menu of life. Now, actually, this is nothing new. We experience this every day. Sometimes we are happy, and sometimes we're in the morning, we may be very happy, then we get angry, and then we get grumpy, and then we get like doubtful. And so all this experience, we see it every day. It arises and passes away. So very obviously, then we understand that different mind states arise at different moments throughout our day. So they are different. Actually, there are different types of consciousness happening. Yeah. Okay. Now, besides the consciousness, Chitta and Cetasika, which are the mental ingredients, we are also going to look at metta itself. Metta, for example, eye consciousness. I mean, eye sensitivity, not conscious. Eye sensitivity. This physical eye. Is a kind of matter. Without this matter, without this particular material property, we cannot see. So according to Sayadaw, that this matter is located in the back of the eyeball, like somewhere in the rods and cones, around that area. So we find this eye sensitivity material property. We're going to look at all kinds of material property inside human, inside us, and outside material property as well. So for example, like a flower here. And we are also going to look at how, when this material property, which is a visible object in this case, and the eye sensitivity, when these two material property, when they get into contact with the help of light, then how eye consciousness can arise. So all these are being explained in the Abhidhamma. And when we are seeing something, now what kind of mental process happened in our mind? How do we know that it is a flower? How do we know that it is yellow? What happened? Like, so one chitta, one consciousness after the other, one after the other, one after the other. We're going to look at the whole process, how it works. And then we are also going to look at in the moment of conception, like in the rebirth, or when this life start, what happened, like what kind of consciousness, what kind of mental factors and mental ingredients are there, and what kind of material properties arise together, as well as in the moment of death, what happened, well, what kind of chitta arise in what sequence and how. Or when a person is in deep meditative state, or even in a moment of enlightenment, what's happening in his mind. So all this mental process we are going to look at in chapter 4. And then we are also going to look at karma. What do we mean by karma? What is karma? What kind of karma is there? And then its results. And also like what kind of result it gives, like what is its function, when is it going to give result, which order is it going to give result, all these things are being explained. So as we already said earlier, the Abhidhamma is a study about oneself, It's about what we are made up of, how it works. So it's very much like a menu. Like we might know how to drive a car, but we might not know how the engine works. Yeah. So just like in our daily life, we go about every day doing this and that, and then all these things is happening inside of us, but we might not know how it works or why it works like that. It's just like we don't know the parts and the engines and all the things of the car in the same way. So the Abhidhamma explains us about all these details, which I personally find it really interesting, fascinating. It is the most interesting and important thing that I have ever studied in my life. And so I hope you find something beneficial and interesting also in this sharing in this coming course. Okay, so until now, we have seen that we are going to explore a lot about mind and matter, how it works, how it affects us, and which is extremely important for our daily life and our Dhamma practice as well. And in the later chapter of the Abhidhamma Sangaha, it also actually explains about meditation practice, how it works and why it works. So it explains in detail about samatha meditation, which is tranquility meditation, one-pointedness meditation. It also talks about vipassana, insight meditation, which leads to the final purification of the mind. Yeah. And so in detail, it will explain the training, the component of the training prescribed by the Buddha, the structure of it. Dana, Sila, Bhavana. So generosity, morality, and Bhavana, the cultivation, which includes samadhi, the stability of mind, or in other words, concentration. Then we have panya as well, wisdom. Yeah. So it explained the structure in very much detail, how it works, and also how these three, the Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, how it directly counteract with the negativity or the unwholesome states of the mind, and how it can totally uproot them. Why and how? So that we can achieve the final goal of the purification of the mind. So this is what we are going to look at in these coming sessions. This is what the Abhidhamma Sangaha offers. And before we close, I would also like to share Sayadaw U Sīlānanda, my Abhidhamma teacher, his words. He says, learning the Dhamma is to understand the nature of mind and matter, on which we attach to without knowing its reality. The more we know the nature and reality, the more we can reduce or eradicate our attachment. So that is the purpose of our study. This is to help our daily life as well as our meditation practice. And so until now, we have looked at the brief introduction of topics that we are going to look at in this course. And as you see, there are a lot of information. It's going to be a gradual process. It's like putting pieces of puzzle together. So in the very beginning, we might have a lot of questions, but then slowly, when the pieces come together, we will see the picture in a more and more clear way. So yes, this for the Abhidhamma study, we really need time and we need a lot of patience. So until we gathered all the ingredients, we know what the ingredients are, then we can start knowing how to cook and then the taste of it. Yes. So again, I welcome you on this journey of exploration about oneself. And it is very wonderful that we are not alone. We are all together, walking together, exploring the Dhamma together. And whatever questions you have, then don't hesitate and ask, because sometimes if you have this question, maybe some other person also have this question. So it clarifies the understanding of everybody. So questions is always good. Now, if sometime you miss a session because sometimes maybe we have something to do on the Saturdays or sometime, then all this information of the previous class will be posted into the YouTube channel called Anatomy of the Mind, the Abhidhamma. I think in the email that I sent previously with access to the Zoom classroom, there is a link as well to the playlist there. So I'll post the class to this channel for whoever missed a class or who cannot join live that day. And it will be very helpful if you can find the time to look at the video before the next session, because as you see, this study is really like accumulation of information. It goes like progressively, gradually. So if we miss something, then it will be less complete when we go to further steps. And so it is important, especially for the beginning sessions, when we are gathering important basic information for further study. Okay, now also I would like to ask you, if you don't wish to be on the video, then please send me an email. I'll try to do some editing. Otherwise, I'll just post it. And if you have any questions after looking at the video and you want to clarify before the next session, you're very welcome to send me an email. This is actually the email that I have been sending you emails, so I think maybe you already have it, or you would like to drop it down. Okay, so until here, that's the introduction of today. And if you have any questions, then we can talk a little bit.
Hi, I had a question with regard to the Cheta and Chetasika. And from my whatever I could understand from the diagram that you showed, just to extrapolate from the diagram, the understanding could be wrong, so I just wanted to clarify. There was the plate and there were all the ingredients in the plate, and the plate was correlated to Cheta and the ingredients were correlated to the Chetasika. So from that, what I extrapolated and understood was that Cheta could be like awareness, bare awareness, and let's say Chetasika is the quality of that awareness. And so when you say different consciousness, not in the reference of like high consciousness and other that kind of thing, but the quality of the consciousness is coming only from the Chetasikas is what I take back. Maybe I'm wrong, but the Cheta itself is bland and is similar, or it has the same quality. Is that a right understanding, or is that not correct?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Yes, actually, you are very much ahead, because those are informations that we are going to look at in the coming sessions, because today we are only looking at an introduction of what we are going to see. So we haven't got into Chitta and Chetasika itself, but you are right. Chitta itself, its characteristic is just only the bare knowing of an object. It's just a bare cognition. It only takes an object. And Chetasika itself, it really does give the color of that consciousness. So if that consciousness, that bare knowing, so because every Chitta must have an object. So because its characteristic is to know, is to the bare knowing of something. No? So there must be something for it to know. So that object, so that it has an object, yeah. So the ingredients itself gives the color. If it is associated with craving, then it's a lobha mula citta. It's a consciousness that is based on. It's a craving rooted consciousness. In that case, then it defines what kind of consciousness it is. Now, it might be a little bit confusing right now because we haven't looked at those information. So I see some faces like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's okay, because we are going into details, thing by thing, in the coming session. We are going to define what is a chitta. We are going to look at all the ingredients one by one, and we are going to look at their combinations. What combination makes what kind of chitta, what kind of consciousness. But you are totally right.
Just from my understanding, would it be wrong, therefore, to when you said, like, different consciousness, would it be wrong to say that it's actually, let's say, to be more precise, different Chetasikas and not different? I mean, because consciousness, like if you're saying, is broken into Cheta and Chetasika, then the Cheta is kind of not constant but constant, and the Chetasika is the one that's differentiating. So then there is different Chetasikas when you say different consciousness. I mean, maybe I'm
yes. I think correct me if I misunderstand you. So how I understand you is like Chitta is always the Chitta. and what is different is the mental ingredient. Is that what you mean? Right. Okay. So now as we say that chitta and cittasika, they always arise together, exist together, and pass away together. Okay. So it arises. So this chitta that has this kind of ingredients, it arises together with this ingredient, it exists, and then it passes away together with those ingredients. And then another chitta arises with different ingredients, and then it exists, and then it passed away. And then another chitta arises, but then chitta itself, all of those chittas that arise and passes away have the same characteristics of bare knowing. It takes an object. Yeah. Okay. So they are not the same chitta because the ingredients are different. They arise and passed already, that the other one is gone and another one is there. So therefore they are not the same chitta, although they have the same characteristics. Does that answer the question?
Perfect. Got it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Edith, please.
So my question is related to the history of the Abhidhamma, basically, in two places. In this book, also from Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he says that the Abhidhamma was introduced in the third council. So I was wondering, when you mentioned about the first council, that the teaching itself was recited only in the third council, was separated out, or what happened? I don't really get, like, or was the teaching, the Abhidhamma teaching, preserved and then just introduced in the third council? And why wasn't that recited in the first council then?
Yes. Okay. So about historical account, there are always some different debates. But as far as I know, is that the Abhidhamma teaching has been since the time of the Buddha. The Buddha himself taught it. But the Buddha taught it in the heavens. So I think maybe, well, some of you might, I didn't want to mention about this because it's something so concrete, so about us, but then it comes from like the heavens, what? Like some people might think like that. So I didn't want to mention this in the beginning, but this is also part of the where I come from. So I would just mention it a little bit. When the Buddha was alive, then he, in one vasa, he went to the heavens to give teachings to his mother, his previous mother. Yeah, yes. I think we all have heard of this story. So there he taught the Abhidhamma in the heavens. But then every day the Buddha had to take lunch. So he came back to the human world, and that time Venerable Sariputta will serve him food. And then because Venerable Sariputta is the second to the Buddha in terms of wisdom. Yes, we all have heard about that. So he understands. So the Buddha, during the meal, he will tell Venerable Sariputta, oh, today I have taught this and this and this and that, in a brief version. Yeah. So Venerable Sariputta, because of his wisdom faculty so strong, he understood what the Buddha had taught. And then Venerable Sariputta then go to his 500 disciples, and he taught the Abhidhamma to the disciples. So therefore, there are different, people say that, oh, this is not the teaching of the Buddha, and then some say then this, but actually the Buddha taught to Venerable Sariputta, and the version that we get now is the version that Venerable Sariputta taught to his disciples. So these teachings are also the part of the teachings of the Buddha, and as far as I know, it has been recited also in the first council, only in the categorization. I mean, the Dhamma is classified into different classifications. We know the Nikayas.
Later, yes.
We have the Tipitaka. So in this different classification, then I have heard from my teacher that the Tipitaka classification came up after the third council, but it is only a matter of classification. It's not a matter of the Dhamma itself. Now, why do people say that? Why do some people say that there are the Abhidhamma only happen? I mean, it's only added in the after the third council. That's because there is this book. I think it was the Pugala Piñati. this book, or the Katavotu, the Katavotu, the Points of Controversy. This book is actually the record of the controversial point of the Sangha, when the understanding, like in the very beginning, when the Sangha split after the Buddha passed away in some hundred of years, and before the Sangha split, there was actually only a disagreement about the Vinaya, about the rules and regulations. But then after that, then with time, then there are also disagreement between the community about the Dhamma itself. So therefore, the third council was held in order to verify the authentic teachings of the Buddha. And at that time, those controversy points are being added in the Katavotu. And that book is included in the Abhidhamma. I don't know why, but it's included in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. So that's, I think that's how I understand, but I will confirm and ask my teacher again. But again, this is, I think it's really, for me, not the most important point, because even if the Buddha himself did not taught, Venerable Sariputta is so wise, even if he taught it, I would say that it is a treasure. And then whoever, even other arahants or other great teachers taught it, and it is according to the Buddha's teaching, then I think it is acceptable. And also, I would say, when we go into details of all this information, then we will know that then you can choose whether you think that it is acceptable or not. By that time, we can judge by ourselves after we look at the material.
Yeah, I have to mention, I do not have doubts. I'm really on board. So it's just something I noticed that in some places I see that they say that it only was introduced in the third council.
Yeah, sometimes like like historical record, like I really can't say too much about that, but yes, as far as I know. And also this is according to the Theravada record, no? Because maybe some other tradition, they also have their version of Abhidhamma, then maybe they have another explanation, which I don't know. Yeah, okay, thank you, Edith. So Ada, please.
So my question comes from near the end of your presentation, so it may be something we discuss in a future class. But my simple understanding of reality is that it is that which is real is all things that we experience directly. And so when we talk about the causes of experience, like the eye sensitivity and the contact and so on, I'm wondering what, when you say are referring to the rods and cones in our eyes and the, the matter there, are those, what sort of reality is that? Is that, I would imagine that, like, speaking of our rods and cones, or even like the, sort of basic matter from a physics perspective is still conceptual, but I don't know, maybe that's not the case. So I'm sort of, the sort of basic things that make our experience happen. What sort of reality is that?
Yes. So when I said about Chakupasada, the eye sensitivity, that very little material property, it does not arise alone. So we mentioned also about Kalapa, yes. So inside a Kalapa, it's also not only one material property. In chapter 6, we're going to get into details about all kinds of matters. So in each Kalapa, there are different material properties inside there. So it arises together, okay? So, but because one thing, like one material property, just like the Cetasika, one cannot arise alone. It arises together, the Cetasikas, a group of Cetasika, arise together with the Citta, they arise together, exist together, and pass away together. In the same way, Kalapa also it consists of different kinds of material properties in there. So that which makes it an eye material property, no, not a tongue let's say, material property, like tongue sensitivity. Eye sensitivity is different from tongue sensitivity because the kalapa itself, the ingredient inside there is different. Yeah, so that makes them different. So when I say the rods and cones, I'm just trying to say where they are more or less located, this material property, but not exactly the rod is the eye sensitivity or the cones are the material is the eye sensitivity, not like that, because they are groups of different material properties that come together, and they have different functions, different ingredients. And so yeah, in chapter 6 we'll go into details about that, but I don't know if I answered a little bit of your question.
Yeah, yes, a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Claudia, please.
Yeah, my question is, like Chitta and Chittasika, they arise together, but their characteristic is a matter. So
the characteristic is what? Sorry?
They are constituted of matter, of kalapa. Is that correct?
No,
From what I understood.
No.
Okay. Can you clarify this one to me? Because in
Yes.
my mind,
Sure. So
this is what happened.
yes. Okay. So what we call a human is a combination of mind and matter. So we have mind and we have this physical matter. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, let's say, two things, although they are related. They are related, but they are
Yeah.
two things. They have different nature. And mind is further divided into chitta and chittasikas. So chitta
Yes.
and chittasika, the chitta, which is the let's say the container, and the chittasikas are the ingredients. They arise together, exist, and then they passed away together. So what kind of chitta is available and what kind of ingredients are inside those chittas? And we are going to look at it in chapter 1 and chapter 2. It will become very clear. And now about material property, although it is related to the mind, we are going to deal with it a little bit later in chapter 6. So we study.
So if I understood well, when a chitta and chittasika arise, then because they arise, something in the matter happen. Is that correct?
Yes,
so
yes.
They, let's say, how is
they are
this word in
different,
English?
but they are related. They are different.
Yeah.
They are totally different, but they are related. For example, when someone is it's very shy, then the face get red. So that's totally because of the mind. Because I'm so shy, and then this becomes red. Yeah. So because of the mind, then something happens in the physical body because they are related. So that also happens, but not all of them are related to mind. There are also different classes of matter that arise because of different causes. Then in that one we will come into very, very detailed in chapter 6.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your teaching.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Bob, please.
Oh, yeah. One thing that I just think is interesting about Abhidhamma, it's not really a question, but these ideas about ultimate reality and conventional reality, maybe 2,000 years after the Abhidhamma came out, a Western philosopher, David Hume, rediscovered this idea and called it bundle theory. And about 200 years ago, they rediscovered this idea of chitta and chittasika. They called it intentionality. And I just think it's really amazing about the Dhamma that the Buddha and his followers, they were already having these ideas and these discussions 2,000 years ago. And then when it finally was rediscovered in the West, everyone treats it like it's this amazing new discovery. And I just want to just bring that up.
Yes, it's very interesting. Yes. So I think when the Dalai Lama, he has this Mind and Life Institute. He works very closely with the scientists. I think maybe you have all heard about it. And so, yeah, there are a lot still for science to discover, and many things that the Buddha already explained. And so it's interesting, yes, to see how this the discovery and things just confirm the teachings and all these things. No. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, yes, Mila.
Just a quick question. So one chitta is paired up with one cetasika at a time, right? Because you were saying it's mental ingredient, plural.
First, I'll clarify this point first. Yes. So one chitta, let's say, imagine it as a dish, as a salad. So this salad contains lettuce and tomato and onion and carrot and dressing and salt and pepper and everything. So the cetasika is the bowl, and the mental ingredients are many kinds, depending on what dish. If we are cooking, let's say, a salad, then it's a salad. If we are cooking, let's say, a soup, then it could be with, I don't know, pumpkin, cream, and other things. No, so not only one chitta and one cetasika. So one chitta and many cetasikas. So there are a basic number that there are some cetasikas that are always there. It comes with every kind of chitta. That's the basic group to make the consciousness work, because they have different functions. Yeah. Then they sometimes have other ingredients to make it different color. Let's say that if it is a wholesome chitta, if it is a chitta with loving kindness, then it has the green ingredients with loving kindness plus the basic ingredients. No. And then, for example, basic ingredients, I will just mention so that it's clear. Let's say attention. So without attention, you cannot be loving, and no chitta works without attention. Yes. So those are one of those that are always there in every kind. So there are these groups, and we're going to study them group by group, like what always are there. Some are occasionals and some are specifics.
And they arise at the same time, basically.
Yes.
The cetasika. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That specific chitta arise together, exist together, and pass away together.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else? So if we have no more questions today, then we will see you again next Saturday. And I look forward to getting into the content. Next week, we are going to look at the 4 ultimate realities. And then we hopefully will start looking at different chittas. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. So I would like just to close.
Thank you.
Just to close by saying, Itam no punyam nibbanassa paceyo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbanassa paceyo hotu. Itam no punyam nibbanassa paceyo hotu. May this effort of studying the Dhamma together be conditions for the attainment of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.